Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. Mike, it has been a long-awaited debut for this comic book. We heard rumors of this for years. There was leaks around San Diego Comic-Con. It is finally here. The
Yep.
absolute Batman #1 start of the thing. You got the main cover and the Jim Lee cover here. Start of this new Absolute Universe. They had the all-in-one shot last week, but this really seems like this was supposed to be the start of it. This is this in earnest. You got the big names on it. You got Scott Snyder. You got obviously Batman anytime he's involved. Nick Dragotta on art. So we finally get a debut after a lot of hype and everything with it. We thought what we're going to do is we're just going to run through kind of a spoiler-filled recap of the issue. We won't spoil every plot point, but kind of just go through the main takeaways that we had of it. I've gotten to read it a couple times, and Mike's seen a lot of it, so we'll kind of go through and talk about what we liked about the book, what our overall thoughts are on this different version of Batman that we're going to get, and where this could potentially be in the future. So overall, kind of to start on this one, I'll kind of just paint out all the differences, Mike, and get your thoughts on it here. So this Batman in the Absolute Universe, we knew he would not have money. Instead, he grows up, it seems, either lower middle class or a little lower middle class, so not from money at all. His father was a teacher. His dad is killed on a school field trip while he is there protecting him. Mom is still alive, so we have Martha Wayne, who is still there. He grew up basically around Crime Alley. His childhood friends are pretty much almost all the villains, like Waylon Jones and Selina Kyle, Oswald Cobblepot. I believe they even mentioned the Riddler. So a lot of his friends growing up are people who could potentially become villains, but
Kind of
aren't
like
yet.
in the show Gotham,
A little bit in the show Gotham, yeah, which
right?
I
Yeah.
some of the vibes there. Um, Essentially in this one, this story kind of picks up Alfred is obviously not his butler, he didn't grow up rich. Alfred seems to be some sort of former spy or part of a mercenary group. Alfred has been sent to Gotham to observe this group called the Party Animals, who are killing people across Gotham. And he essentially is sent to observe, but kind of deal with Batman if Batman gets in the way. We kind of learned a little bit about Batman's backstory. So he got to college, got on a football scholarship, faked an injury essentially, studied, worked in different places for the city to accumulate all these skills and knowledge of the city, and then largely kind of just sets it up with their Black Mask as the first villain of this arc. So all these changes, before we get into an actual comic book breakdown, what do you think about all the changes? You're a longtime Batman fan. What do you think about all of the changes that you're hearing about from this different universe and what they're doing?
Can I just say, I love it when a Batman story has Alfred as a badass who can hold
Okay.
his own in a fight. There are a
Yeah.
few storylines where he could kick some ass and he could really, hang in there with the punches and rescue Bruce once in a while. There was a couple of storylines like that. That was always a fascinating angle for me. That
Yeah.
Alfred was,
It does make Alfred make a lot more sense when he's someone who has skills where he'd be able
yeah,
to help Bruce with the tech and the injuries and stuff like that. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So I do kind of like where that's going. Um, for me, like what I said about All In back in the beginning was that I needed a good jumping on point for Batman. And I don't mind so much that they mixed up the origin story or tried to take a fresh approach to it. This is a great place where I can jump on and put Batman on my sub list after being off for 6 8 years. So
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. I think it's really cool how they're giving us Bruce in a different angle, and
Mhm.
I think it's cleverly done. I like how he makes his own tech because he's
Yep.
not super rich. He's got to come up with this stuff. I like how he's still super smart. Doesn't kill. He has the no kill rule, but he's out to help folks. Kind of like your scary neighborhood Batman, as opposed to your friendly neighborhood Spider Man.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, one of the things is I know there's people who are going to very much dislike the changes, and there's one that I don't like. The rest I can kind of get on board with. I'm completely fine with all the changes they're doing because it's an alternate universe story. It's the entire reason this thing is supposed to exist. Do I wish the main continuity Batman was in better shape? Sure. Do I wish there was stronger writing on that right now? Yes. But we have, if I want the traditional Batman who is Bruce Wayne, the Orphan, Rich, Gotham, Wayne Manor, all that stuff. I have the regular continuity Batman, and there's no shortage of those books. You've got Detective Comics, Batman and Robin, Batman. You have 6 or 7 World's Finest. I mean, there's 6 or 7 books in that continuity with that Batman. There is no shortage of stories with that version of Batman. And so to have an ongoing book with a completely different angle, I'm going to give that a ton of grace and a break on it because why would it, I don't need another Batman book that exists with the same exact storyline. I would rather they strengthen the ones they have than throw us another one. And so one of the things I like about this is I do think from all the differences they do, it justifies the reason for this book existence. And I think that was what I was really looking for out of the first issue is this going to be a book that actually stands on its own, or is it just going to be, oh, it's basically Batman from the main continuity, but like we changed one detail. And so I do like that they changed enough where you're like, man, this is genuinely a different experience. The
Yes.
one thing I would say is anytime you do that, though, you do have to make sure that you don't change the main character so much that he is no longer Batman, right? That he's just Batman in name only. What I will say from this book, the attitude that Bruce has matches similarly to who he is in the main continuity. He's a little gruff and tough. He's not the most talkative guy. He's very smart, very resourceful. I loved the fact that they had him take at this engineering thing, but then he plans basically. So he takes all these different jobs within the city to figure out how the city works and plan. So you've got the master strategist angle of Batman that's still there. He's still motivated by trauma. And still is trying to do that. Good by his father and his sacrifice. I liked the self-made piece in a lot of ways. I think the invention of Lucius Fox. I think it's kind of taken a little bit away from Bruce because it used to be that Bruce was the guy who knew all that stuff, and so I do think
Can,
reclaiming that's actually pretty cool. Go ahead, Mike.
can I just say, I love that he took the job in the sewers
Hmm.
because you never know when you're going to have to sneak away down some manhole and creep away from the cops. So I thought it was just, I just thought it was a brilliant twist. They worked for the sewer company. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's so much that they do with Bruce that still feels like Bruce Wayne. And again, could this go off the rails if we start having issues where Bruce won't go after certain criminals or something like that because of his new background? I'll probably have an issue with that. But I do think from this issue, it presents him very much the same in personality from what I saw. Is it a little different? Sure, he's got friends and things like that. That's not really, but you substitute Superman and the other Justice Leaguers he's friends with for, this background. I don't mind that too much. I like the strategist angle. I like that he was self-made. I like that he still had skills. I like that he still came off as Batman. He wasn't quipping or joking or acting like Spider-Man or something like that. He still very much had enough of the essence of Batman. And I think that's why it worked. I think overall the biggest strength this book has, it's the writing that Scott Snyder does. You have this very interesting weaving of the narratives that he has with Alfred kind of observing Gotham and Batman, and it brings a different perspective. And obviously, it's the audience surrogate. You're seeing it through Alfred's narrative, and that's supposed to serve for you. And I thought that was well designed for him. Nick Dragotta's art, it's not my favorite, but I will say I'll kind of just show a couple panels. I mean, I'm sure folks will pick this up, but there's a really cool kind of double page spread here at the end
I
of
love
Batman as
that double page
motorcycle.
spread. I love
Um,
it.
and I think it's good art. Again, you have this bulkier, bigger Batman. Yeah, not my favorite. I'll say this. Look, is this going to replace the main continuity Batman as the best Batman? Absolutely not. Right. But I do think this has a lot of story potential. And all I look for out of a number one issue is, can you give me something where I'm like, man, I want to see how that plays out? And can you give something that justifies the reason for this book existing? And I think on those two fronts, this absolutely succeeds. It's an A plus in those areas. Is this
Yeah.
going to be someone's favorite comic book where, oh my gosh, 20 years from now, we're revisiting as a classic? Probably not. But I think for what we have in the modern comic book landscape, this was a really, really solid entry point.
I know. And there's a lot of sideline DC fans like me that love Batman and just got lost in the morass of the continuity over the last 10, 15 years and dropped the book. So, now I got something I can put on my sub list and go, and I can read some Batman stories that I really enjoy. So, yeah, I love it. I don't know if you want to talk about the Joker or not, but that was a twist.
Yeah, yeah. So
And
we'll talk the couple things that I don't like about the book. And I think the
yeah,
last page is really the only thing that, but well, there's one change to the background and then one for the last page thing. Um, I don't know that I like the Martha Wayne being alive thing. It is a different angle, and what I will say is it does come off a bit too much like we copied Ultimate Spider-Man.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like Uncle
Where
Ben's alive in Ultimate
Uncle Ben's
Spider-Man.
alive. Oh, Martha Wayne survived. And I think,
But it was really cool to see Uncle Ben fleshed out like a character. Like, what if he had lived?
yeah, and
So I kind of I kind of think Zach has in mind something. Well, Batman always had Alfred, and
yeah,
and
you
in
kind of have
this
Martha Wayne
story,
becomes the surrogate
yes,
for Alfred. I
because
think,
Alfred, who will probably be an ally at this point, is almost an antagonist.
yeah,
Yeah, and anyway, I thought it was pretty cool. Good
I think
job,
it's an
Zach.
interesting thing. I think the way that Snyder built in having his dad sacrifice himself essentially to save Bruce and protect the kids. I thought that was enough that it justified why Batman would be Batman. And seeing your father and someone you loved and having him, do that, I think that did enough. I do wonder though, I mean, so there's two things on the mother part of it that kind of bug me. One, this universe is supposed to be that we took all the advantages away from the characters, right? That was sort of the flushing out point of this was created by dark side energy or whatever, and so the heroes lost all their things. Um, I don't know what it says then when you say his mom survived. Like if Batman's supposed to lose all of his advantages, again, I'm sure they didn't think through like that, but it is a weird thing that like we took away all Batman's advantages so his mother lived. That's kind of weird. And the book sort of plays it like she's a weakness that he has that can be exploited by enemies. And so maybe that's the angle they're going with is an advantage that Batman has is that there's no one, but then he's always had Alfred and the Robin. So I don't really know. I think this was more of a shock twist thing. But if you're going to build the whole thing on we took the advantages away from the heroes, his mom surviving seems a little weird at that point.
Well, if you're dark side and you're manipulating events for an alternative future, you might not have all your fingers in all the right timelines to
Yeah,
fix everything.
yeah, that could be. Again,
maybe
I'll
he
say
was
this:
trying to
it's
maybe he was trying to save both parents, but
to make him not become bad. Yeah,
yeah,
it'll
right.
be interesting to see how they. And again, could that have just been the whole dark side thing? Maybe I'm thinking that through too much. Maybe that was just look.
Yeah,
We want to explain why this new universe exists, and they're different,
but
and
it's comic books. You
that's
got to roll
probably
with it.
what it is.
Yeah.
But I do think when you make the mission statement, we took all his advantages and then his mom's alive. It's a little weird. Um, Overall, that will be interesting. I do think, that's the only change that bugs me. I don't mind the riches being gone. The parents, it's the inherent tragedy of Batman losing both his parents in that moment, right? Where you get this idea that this kid basically grew up alone, and Alfred always has this relationship of I wasn't really enough of a parent figure, and that's why you went down this track and became Batman. When you have the mom live, I just wonder if that changes that dynamic too much, but we'll see. I think Snyder can flesh it out. And I will say, if this was a different writer, if this, Scott Snyder to me, look, I think with Noctera that he wrote, that indie book that you absolutely loved, the strong run that he did on Batman, I didn't get a ton of credit, but I really liked his Superman. I think it was Unchained that he did around the New 52 that I thought was really good. I thought his Batman Last Night on Earth was good. He's a great writer, in my opinion. And so the threads that concern me, I'm going to give a ton of grace to the fact that there's a strong writer on the title. If this
Oh,
was
you
someone,
can bet with Zach that Martha being in there is going to be a big
yeah,
deal at some point in the story. So I would say just hold
yeah,
on
I
and
think
buckle up.
I think with Scott Snyder there, it'll take care of it. I think the art from Nick Dragotta is good, and what I will say is it's if he can be consistently the artist on the book, that's the other part that I do worry about. Anytime you get a launch from the big two, is I liked the art style that was in this. I liked it a lot more when I actually saw it in action than I did in the previews and stuff, and I think he did a really good job. The challenge is going to be it's the same as all these Ultimate Universe books. Is the Marco Cicchetto on Ultimate Spider-Man? You get 3 issues and then you get fill-ins. Is this actually going to be that Dragotta is on every issue? But I'll say I think it's a really solid entry point. I think the only part that bugged me, and we'll talk about the Joker now. At the one, the
Okay.
only clunky dialogue portion of it is the last page where they kind of do this whole he never laughs at any jokes, and that's why they call him the Joker. I thought that was really clunky. It's the only part of the book that wasn't well written. But what I will say is the Joker as like a one percenter bad guy where he's kind of it almost
Lex
makes it seem like the
Luthor.
Joker's Bruce Wayne now, right? The Joker is from the position that Bruce was in. And I think they say he's one of the 30th richest people in the world. To me, again, I know we're changing everything and twisting it a bit. The Joker being from money is just a weird angle to take. And I do worry, is the book essentially going to become some thesis statement on rich Bruce Wayne's really bad? And that's basically, I don't know if it'll go there. I
I
just think,
I think I think it's probably an exercise in juxtaposition
yeah,
where you know Clark Kent was just a farm kid from Kansas. He got a job at the newspaper, but he was battling Lex Luthor, who was this tycoon. So
the
I
tycoon
think,
megalomaniac.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it just kind of switches things around where Bruce has all of his faculties about him. Everything's in place. He's smart. He's he's self-reliant, and he's educated himself, and he's ready to take on anything. But what if the super villain was super rich, super powerful, and had all the angles, who could build tech
That could compete with Batman.
yeah, to compete with
And
Batman?
that's where I'll say I trust Snyder is Scott Snyder, I think, has written some stronger. I know not everyone loves his Joker stories.
Was
I
I
actually,
saying Zach instead of Scott?
yeah, you've gone Zack Snyder on this. It's
I,
okay. Zack Snyder
sorry,
poisoned the well
guys. I
for us
was I was
DC
talking about
fans.
Scott.
He
Yeah, I
lives in
meant
our
Scott.
brain rent free after destroying the DCU. I think the thing with him, I think he's written, and I've liked his Joker approach. I've liked the stories he's written for the Joker. I don't really like a lot of Joker stories in Batman, other than something like Brubaker and really stronger writers have written him. What I think this could do is, I do think, yeah, if you put where the Joker is actually a legitimate foe for Batman now, where with the tech and the resources the Joker has, can you make it where a confrontation between them could also be a little more dramatic than the comics do? Because I
Because
often
he's
think the
going to be so
Joker,
disadvantaged. And
yeah.
that's always what builds good drama, is your hero is at a huge disadvantage over something that's so overpowering.
Well, and I think again you can even add into it now. Okay, now Batman will have the tech disadvantage plus the he's not trying to kill the Joker disadvantage that always
Yeah,
comes from the comics. Again, a lot of grace comes from the writer. The Joker part's the only. If I had a major red flag from the comic, that would be the only one I have where I'm like, that's an interesting play. But again, I'll trust him on it. And I'll be honest, I'm not a huge fan of the Joker as a character. I think the Joker is so often. I think there's great writers who have written him well. I think the earlier appearances are great. Sometimes the Joker just gets the ultimate plot armor where it makes no sense whatsoever that he can hang with Batman in some of the stories. And so it'd be interesting to see if Snyder can kind of flesh that out. Overall, I think what I'll say is this was a really, really positive first step. I think one of the things that you and I talked about when we've talked about DC All In and what we were looking for, we wanted to see would it be something that justified its existence? Would this be something that seemed to have been thought out? Was this something that seemed to have planning behind it? And from the first issue, I will say it kind of had all that. Is this going to be the book for everybody? No. If you're looking for the traditional Bruce Wayne from the comics and you hate anything that isn't that, then yeah, you're absolutely going to have an issue with it. You're probably not going to like it. But I do think if you're like, you know what, I kind of want to see Batman through a different lens, see them make some changes, kind of
yep.
justify its own existence with the knowledge that, hey, the regular Bruce isn't going anywhere. It's a really, really strong comic. I would give it an A as far as a grade for a first issue. Will that
And
hold down the line? I don't know, but for the first issue, it was great.
and now I can see why Snyder was so enthusiastic about it when he
Mhm.
did that video, that pre-release video, and
Yeah.
he talked about his ideas. So I can really see why. So I'm excited, to have
I guess
Batman on my
the
sub list
one,
again.
yeah, no, and I think that's the other part is too, is I do think for me and you have talked a lot about you need to grow the audience. You need to give new readers a chance to check something out. And while I would love the approach of something like Batman, the animated series, where you just take Batman to a point where a new reader could join it, but it's the classic Batman. Comic books have kind of given up the ability to do that. And so I do think what's cool with this, and where I was really encouraged, is my teenage son thought was the number one issue with the new continuity, and he actually wanted to read it and like get into it. He's like, hey, that's really cool. And I think
Yes.
that's the thing that this could accomplish is much like Ultimate Spider-Man, where Ultimate Spider-Man took Spidey and changed him a bit, right? Making him 30. He hasn't been Spider-Man. Uncle Ben's alive. It gave people who haven't been bogged down in Spider-Man's continuity for the past 30, 40 years a
4 years.
chance to,
Yeah.
hey, I can jump in. I'm right at the start line with everybody else. I think it does that. And I think DC really, really needs that in terms of, do I wish this was a little less copy of Marvel? Absolutely. Do I think that some of this is just a pretty blatant ripoff of Ultimate Spider-Man? Kinda. I mean, even down to the, oh hey, shocker, the villain, the one of the parents that she was always dead is alive. But I will say, you know what? It was a good comic book. And if it gets DC new readers and gives them a fresh on point, I'm gonna give them the credit and hope it works out. I don't know if it's going to be the case for Superman and Wonder Woman, but I'll remain hopeful for that. But I'll say I can't complain. Like that's the biggest thing is I know there's going to be a lot of people who are mad at DC and mad at what they've done and don't want to get invested in this stuff. I can't. I literally walked in going, man, I hope this is good today. And I read it and I was like, man, that was a great comic book. And
You
then
know
reread it.
what?
And that's been a while since I've had a DC book that's made me do that.
I think there's a lot of self-loathing DC fans out there that
Me and you among them, buddy. Me and you.
right, and and we're probably thinking this wasn't going to be as good as it is, but you'll be pleasantly surprised, and go and put it on your sub list because you're gonna enjoy the ride. I have a
Yeah,
good feeling
I'm
about this,
hoping.
but I also heard they were going to do the Flash. Are they going to reboot?
Yeah, there's an absolute flash. Oh, not Barry though. It's Wally West. So you're
Oh,
getting,
okay.
yeah, that's right there.
Oh,
I
so
just saw
close.
the excitement crash into the ground for you.
So
And some
close.
of the sketch designs on him haven't looked the best. Again, for a first issue, it's good. I will say I've read great first issues before that haven't held up. I literally 3 months ago they released a Namor comic, and the first issue was fantastic. And then it's kind of fallen off quite a bit. I finally got a chance to read the third issue last week, and I'm like, oh no, what's happened here?
Oh
But
no.
we'll see what happens. But overall, really, really strong debut for it. And last thing we'll kind of touch on, kind of seems like there's a lot of exciting Batman stuff going on, and that there are. We're going to caution the rumors on this. There's a lot of strong rumors out there that we might get Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee on the main Batman cut title, like as the on. If we get that going, plus this, you have so many good creatives working in the Batman. Again,
Are you
I don't
saying
know
like
that Batman
Jim's
needed to
going to
steal
draw
more.
the interiors, not just
Yeah,
the
they're
cover?
saying it's supposed to be Jim Lee drawing the interiors on a Batman story.
Wow.
Again, it's Jim Lee, so it's probably 6 to 10 issues at most if that happens. But it's exciting if that happens, and I think that's the thing is hopefully DC All In, if they're really going to do stuff like this, and they're going to have Jim Lee come back and draw interiors for a book, and getting Mark Waid to write Justice League, and keeping Josh Williamson on Superman, and doing some of these things that seem to be where they've recognized here's our strengths, this is what works, and this is what doesn't. That's all I can really ask as a DC fan. I
Yeah,
think if they can
absolutely.
start pushing out some of these folks who, for lack of a better way, have just kind of made DC sort of a Marvel imitation, and they can really lean into stuff like Mark. I think Mark Waid's on Action Comics now. You've got him on World's Finest. You got him on Justice League. So you got Mark Waid involved in the storytelling. You got Snyder back in. You got Josh Williamson. Hopefully Jeremy Adams keeps rolling with his Green Lantern stuff. This is a good first step, and hopefully this is DC recognizing, hey man, some things needed to change. And so while there are still some books that I have some, reservations about, I will say hopefully this is the turnaround we're looking for. I think that's the one thing I don't want to be is I don't want to be a folks who have been calling, I want a better DC, I want DC to be better, I want DC to do good, calling for change. Then they make change, and then I jump on here and complain about the change. Right. If they drive it off a cliff, we'll be the first one to call that out. But overall, really first strong issue from them. And we'll see what Wonder Woman and Superman's version bring. But hopefully this holds up. But at least for one issue, this was a great Batman comic. We'll see where it goes in the future. Let us know what you guys think below, folks. As always, we appreciate you watching and seeing your comments below. God bless you. And you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.